Hi Jada, I wanted to give you a little bit of feedback about your impromptu speech from the other day. I know you were so very nervous, and I know that you had a hard time coming up with a story to tell. And you know, your story, we didn't get enough of your story, but I want to say that, you chose to tell us a personal story. You made yourself a little bit vulnerable in front of the audience, and I can tell that you were a little bit uncomfortable about that, but what you might not realize is that when you do that, you actually get empathy from the audience. You make the audience like you a little more, and a lot of people could relate to your story because who hasn't had a little trouble with their best friend or a best friend over the years? And even at the end when you said, you're really cautious about your relationships now, I feel that way too. And so when you were talking about that, I felt, wow, we have something in common. So as nervous as you were, and as much as you hated doing that, you actually did a pretty good job of evoking some emotion from the audience and of making the audience like you. So just think about that. If you're going to have to do more speeches in the future, but if you can put a little bit about your personal self or your personal life into the stories that you tell during a speech, you really can win the audience over. And I think that you did that with your speech. So congratulations on that. I think that was a good job. My comments that I hope will help you are mostly about your performance, about your presence, and about your delivery. So you probably already watched your speech, so you know some of this, but you stood for a lot of the time with one hand on your hip and the other hand on the podium, and you don't want to do that. You want to use your hands, and I know that that's probably not natural for you. Like for me it is, because I talk with my hands, but if it's not natural for you, what you should do is practice it in front of the mirror, and so that it becomes sort of natural for you. Because when you stand with your hand on your hip or your hands on the podium or in your pockets or clenching on for dear life, it just makes you look tense and nervous. And when you're tense and nervous, the audience actually gets tense and nervous. It's just like when you're making yourself vulnerable, we feel vulnerable, like we feel permission to be vulnerable with you in return. It's the same thing. We react the way that you act. So you want to practice to loosen up a little bit. So you did smile a little bit, which was good, and you have a really nice smile. So you want to try to do that a little bit more. You said a lot, and I'm sure that you noticed that when you looked at your video. I'm hardly one to talk because I do it too, but you did it even more than I do. You looked down a lot. You looked way down at the floor. Sometimes I thought your eyes were actually closed. Sometimes you looked up. Sometimes you looked from side to side, but you very rarely looked at the audience, and I don't feel like you looked at me at all. You should try to look at every person in the audience in the eyes at least once when you're making your speech. Probably the part that you need to work on the most, though, is you weren't loud enough. I could barely hear you. I was sitting in the back, but when I looked at you on YouTube, I turned the volume all the way up, both on my computer and on the video, and I still couldn't hear you. So you're going to have to project. Remember, it's you plus 10%. I know that you are a very shy, either a shy person or just a nervous person in front of a group. So you just have to realize that and try to practice as much as you can. Practice in front of other people, practice on camera, practice in front of the mirror, but really project your voice. Really talk loud enough for somebody at the very end of the room can hear you. Because even if you had a microphone in front of you, you don't want to mumble your words. You want to be articulate and speak clearly and confidently and enunciate your words. So that's really something for you to work on. But again, we're all starting out, and of course you're not going to do perfect the first time. I'm looking forward to your next one, because I know you can take what you've learned from this speech, and make your next one even better, and I'll be waiting to see it.